Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Sunday, December 17th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Cotton Bowl game against Missouri is in 12 days. The game against Michigan in 349 days. On yesterday's show, we brought in Marc Givler to talk a bunch about recruiting. And then the plan for today's show was that we were going to be mostly focusing on the transfer portal, what Ohio State might be looking to do there, some guys Ohio State has not gotten or has maybe passed on, and what that should tell us about the overall strategy for the Buckeyes this offseason. And then right before we were about ready to hit record, some news broke, and it is not necessarily great news for the Buckeyes. Marc, Eddrick Houston, five-star defensive end commit for the Buckeyes, has been committed for quite a while. Here we are 3 days from signing day, and Eddrick Houston is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he's not there necessarily just to eat Dreamland barbecue. Marc, how big of a concern is this?
Yeah, it's a big concern. It's a high level of concern. This is a last minute visit. The problem with these visits is you can't really swing the momentum back that easily because you can't get them back on campus. You can't go in there and do the in-home. That's all going to close off here in the next 24 to 36 hours. So you don't have this chance to sort of let a visit digest or flip the momentum back your way if you're losing momentum. Signing period's going to open up here in a few days, and that's going to be that. The one silver lining here is I was told that he did let Ohio State know this was happening, so this wasn't necessarily a sneak in and Ohio State finds out the way everyone else does on social media type of thing. But there's no question. I mean, this is the school that they probably battled the hardest for to get Edrick's commitment the first time around, so it's a concern for sure.
And the Buckeyes currently, as of right now, including Eddrick Houston, have two defensive linemen in their class. It's just him and Eric Mensah, the three-star who the Buckeyes flipped from Virginia Tech this fall. So this is not a deep class, and we talked on yesterday's show about a couple guys they could bring in still potentially to this class. But this is, you only took one edge player last year, and you could, you've got guys on the roster you could end up moving there, but this is one of those spots where they really can't afford to even take a small class, let alone, theoretically, if he leaves, then you're down to zero currently committed edge guys. This, in addition to the fact that he's a five-star, the fact that he's a five-star at edge feels like that only makes this more concerning for the Buckeyes.
I think he's the most important player in the class. Even more, like we talked about in yesterday's show, we talked about losing Jordan Lyle, and you don't want to lose Jordan Lyle. He's a great running back, but you've got another great running back in James Peoples. You've got Sam Williams-Dixon in the class. You've got Ohio giving you possibly 2 and 25 if you want to take those two. You can find running backs pretty easily. Like, if that happens, it happens type of thing. And even like someone like Jeremiah Smith, who's a generational talent, they bring in 5-star receivers every year. They've got another one in the class in Mylan Graham, and they're not going to lose Jeremiah Smith. But just to kind of put this in a context of how big this would be with Eddrick Houston is, I think he's their second best player they've got committed behind Jeremiah Smith. They obviously need defensive ends. Defensive end is a premium position. This is not good if this happens to them. This is really bad if they lose Eddrick Houston. There's no way to sugarcoat this one.
Yeah, and in addition to the positional thing, you might see Alabama in the expanded college football playoff starting next season and beyond. Tony Gerderman and I have talked about this on the Buckeye Weekly podcast a few times. When you lose a player to Miami, it's like they've sort of fallen into the Springfield mystery spot, and you never see them again unless you happen to be watching the 3:30 ABC window when there's not another good game on, and it's Wake Forest and Miami. How about that? Are they going to go 7-5 again this year? I don't know, maybe. But will they will they have lots of, smoke machine and all that stuff? Absolutely. And if you think we're being mean, well, go back and look at the last 20 years of Miami football. Yeah, Alabama, though, you're going to see those guys. Ohio State's going to be watching some guys that they lost to Alabama playing in the Rose Bowl against Michigan in the playoff. So, yeah, that is definitely a big concern for Ohio State. So with that, we're going to slide the recruiting to the side now. We're going to talk about the topic we were planning to talk about on today's show, and that is the transfer portal and what's going on with the Buckeyes and the portal. We got to start, Mark, of course, with the quarterback position. That's all anyone wants to talk about. Kyle McCord, obviously in the portal, not coming back. But what where do things stand now with the Buckeyes and maybe bringing in a quarterback? And while you're answering that question, also, what do you think the answer to this question means about how they're managing their name, image, and likeness money? In terms of the class on the whole and existing players versus potentially new players.
Yeah, right now it's looking more like they're going to pass on a portal quarterback in terms of bringing in a guy with the notion he's going to start or even be a strong competitor for the starting job. What I think is probably going to happen at this point is we may see, I'll call it Chug 4.0 at this point, because we had Chug, Hoke, Gebbia, so we're at Chug 4.0 now, I think, at this point, and that's a depth body to fill out the room eventually. And who knows, with Aaron Nolan coming in early, maybe they just roll with 3 all the way through the spring. And kind of drive the competition there, but it just doesn't look like they're going to make that all-in move on any of the portal guys. They kicked the tires on Cam Ward. Doesn't look like any strong push has been made there. Riley Leonard was always going to Notre Dame. They haven't really done anything with Will Howard, who would be a guy of interest, and so all we can gather at this point is that they're just not going to make that type of push. And there's some. This is more than just, these are complicated decisions. This is not, we talked about this on the site, this week, this isn't just, hey, do we want a portal quarterback? It's, do we want to pay $2 million for a portal quarterback? Because that's the going rate, is between $1.5 and $2.5 million. That's what, if you want to get Malik Murphy, if you want to get Will Howard, if you want to get Riley Leonard, if you want to get these guys, you're going to have to come with an NIL package in that vicinity. And so for an Ohio State team that, again, you can roll your eyes at this if you want, they like their quarterback room. They wanted McCord back. They wanted this to play out. They wanted another competition this offseason. They liked the talent in their room. And so if you're Ohio State, you look at this and say, well, if we've got $2 million, do we throw that at a portal quarterback? And then God forbid he comes in, he's not better than what you have anyway. Devin Brown beats him out or Lincoln Keenholz beats him out. And you just paid $2 million for a wasted roster spot? Or do we take, $2 million and do we try to entice some of these fourth-year players to come back instead of leaving early for the NFL and kind of shore up some other areas of the roster? And that's what it looks like they're doing right now to me.
Well, one of the other places on the roster they might be interested in shoring up is the offensive line. The line was not good at the beginning of the year and kind of okay-ish, decent at the end of the year. And they had some success in the portal last year and some not success, bringing in Josh Simmons, who is the starting left tackle this year, who improved quite a bit during the course of the season and ended up the year looking pretty solid over there on the left side, and has another year and will be back next year and potentially anchoring that left tackle spot again. And they also went into the portal and tried to bring in Vic Cutler, and that just didn't work out. And he never really made a push for that starting center job behind Carson Hintzman. This year, there were 3 names we've been talking about quite a bit in the offensive line. 2 of them are Ohio natives, Carter Smith and Zeke Correll. Neither of them are going to end up with Ohio State. Correll ended up going to North Carolina State. Carter Smith ended up walking into the portal and then doing the Homer Simpson walking in and out of the bordello gif. Grandpa Simpson. Sorry. How did I screw up a Simpsons reference? I was thinking Homer in the Bush. It doesn't matter. Anyway.
Tony's never going to forgive you.
I hope Tony doesn't hear this. Anyway, Carter Smith back with Indiana. So that leaves the one other name that's definitely someone who Buckeye recruiting heads will remember, Chase Basantis, who is someone that they looked at very seriously and were making a pretty serious run at a high school. He went to Texas A&M. He is now in the portal. Is Chase Basantis a legitimate, does he have a decent chance of ending up a Buckeye when all is said and done?
They're trying. You got to get that official visit, and that's what they're working on, hammering out right now. It's going to be a pretty intense competition for him. I do think he's going to stay north, closer to home. Not necessarily, doesn't have to go to like Rutgers, doesn't have to go right down the street necessarily, but Penn State's a school that I've heard a lot as far as a school that Ohio State thinks is pretty serious with Chase Basantis. So right now, I think Penn State or Ohio State would probably be my kind of 2 favorites if Ohio State can get them on campus. They're optimistic that's going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet as of this recording. So we'll see if they can get something set up here in the next few days, at least get something on the calendar here as we head toward Christmas. That's not, so this is going to be something they got to get done here pretty quickly. But that's the guy they've pushed for. They kicked the tires on Corral a little bit. They didn't really do much with that. They kicked the tires a little harder on Carter Smith, but they didn't really go full bore there either. But they are very much in the Chase Basantas sweepstakes.
Well, we will see how that sweepstakes shakes out. That covers the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, we get 3 names here, 3 names at the 3 different levels of the defense. And I'll just run through the 3 names and the guys who they're taking a look at, and you can tell me if you think any of them are real seriously likely to end up as Buckeyes this offseason. UCLA safety Kamari Ramsey, Cal linebacker Caleb Elam's-Orr, and Michigan State defensive tackle Derek Harmon. Those are all people that they have, there's been some mutual interest there. Any of them that you think end up, or maybe the most likely to end up as Buckeyes?
Yeah, I think if I'll just rank this. I think Elam's-Orr is probably the most likely. Now, Elam's-Orr and Ramsey are both on their official visits kind of as we speak right now. But kind of coming into the weekend, I've got Elam's-Orr as the most likely of those 3. They've wanted a veteran linebacker. This seems to be their top guy. It looks like they're making a legitimate push there, coming from Cal. So I think this has a good chance of kind of coming together. We'll see what he says coming out of the visit this weekend, but that's one that immediately jumps out to me as a guy they can get. The Kamari Ramsey one's interesting too. I probably have him second. Again, they're going to need safeties, and this isn't so much they have to get a starting safety as much as they got to, 1, protect against Lathan Ransom going pro, and 2, even if Lathan Ransom doesn't go pro, you've lost several bodies to the portal, so you'd really like to have another body in there that can not just be a warm body on the depth chart, but that can actually drive competition and push for playing time next year. And Ramsey would fit that bill, and he was very interested in Ohio State coming out of high school, and I think Matt Barnes didn't exactly do his best work on that one, and sort of maybe didn't make him feel as loved as some of their other safety targets at the time, and so ended up out west. And but this is a kid who I think very much would like to come to Ohio State, and so I think that's one that's very possible as well. Harmon, I think that there's a chance there, but I don't think they're selling quite the same situation to Harmon, who as they are maybe to these other guys where they really need bodies or they need a body. I think the interior of the defensive line, there's some good buzz right now that they could get at least one of those 2 guys back between Mike Hall and Tyleik Williams, and that they're trying to get them both back. So that may be a more, they've got them on campus this past week, but that may be more of a wait and see how the NFL draft decisions shake out.
Well, we will be waiting to see how those NFL draft decisions shake out, how the potential bowl opt-out decisions shake out. Still several big names that we have not heard one way or the other on. So we'll be tracking that over the coming week, tracking the NFL draft decisions, tracking the recruiting and the early signing day. And boy, it is almost here. Quite an eventful week ahead, and the transfer portal. And oh yes, by the way, the bowl game coming up in less than 2 weeks, the Cotton Bowl against Missouri. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of interesting insight and intel and analysis at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Our whole team of insiders working hard to bring you the absolute latest on all of this and much more. You can find us there at BuckeyeHuddle.com, and of course at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We post pretty much a constant stream of podcasts. We're not quite a 24-hour news network, but we're getting closer and closer every week, it seems. Lots of insight, lots of analysis, shows, all sorts of stuff, highlights, high school football stuff that Mark has been traveling all over the place for. He'll be on his Southern swing coming up soon. Lots of great content there as well at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.